My dad doesn't really, sometimes he doesn't understand the way things are now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some things Dad didn't understand, like when I was a kid. I wanted to play with, like, ice hockey, right? Because all my friends were playing ice hockey, and I liked hockey, I liked playing road hockey, so I wanted to play ice hockey. But he didn't put me in ice hockey because he wanted me to do figure skating first, and I tried to explain to him, nobody does figure skating before they go to ice hockey, but he wouldn't believe me.
I know. So
that's why I never got to play hockey, and it still ticks me off.
With me, like being a girl, you know,
yeah.
he doesn't seem very Indian, so to speak, but he does have that background, like in terms of when I was when I was growing up and stuff, wanting me to stay at home and be a good girl, and you know, why would I even want to go out with my friends? He could never understand it. It could just infuriate me. He could just never understand. No matter how many times I argued with him, cried, pleaded, begged, why I would want to go out with my friends.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm old enough, he can't stop me or anything.
Maybe I treated Miriam as a girl differently from the boys, and giving the boys more freedom in going out and stuff like that. I was just as concerned in all cases that they approach that whole business of relations with the opposite sex from a Christian point of view and a biblical point of view, that is, considering the seriousness of their sexuality, it's not given for casual foolishness. It's tied in with marriage, and it's intended to be very much a part of marriage, so that you're thinking in those terms, and I've always put that to them.
Marrying into another mixed race, a different racial family has probably been not so much about marrying somebody of color, but marrying somebody who comes from a whole different culture. And in Sunit's case, it wasn't just that he was coming from an Indian culture with different generations-long understanding of male and female roles that was difficult. But Sunit is an Indian Christian and a believing Christian family.
Their parents' Christianity is another layer of culture their children must integrate into their personality. Their lives are different, and their father's response to the kind of racism they encounter outside their home may prove to be of little help to them. In a racially tense world, it may be too yielding or too passive.
As a Christian parent, as a parent, period, is that my children ultimately, and honestly, not with the pretend thing, not sort of ignoring the racism and the racist problems and all that, but responding ultimately with love for their enemies. You see, that is the thing that I would be most proud of with my kids, if they love their enemies.
They challenge you all the time, even when Sunit begins talking this way. They'll say, "But Dad, don't give us all this theory. This is the situation that we're dealing with right now." Yeah. They want. Sometimes they just want you to hear them, because you don't have an answer for them. But I think the one good thing about a home is we can't change some of the things that they'll be up against, and I don't even know the answers to them. But at home, this should be a place where they can challenge us, where they can talk, where we're going to listen, where we're going to be willing to change and let them change us.
And I think sometimes to admit, like you said, I don't have the answers. No. To be able to say I am, powerless in this situation.
His dad has some really strange views of the world. I think he's still living in 18th century.
He's like a coconut. He's brown on the outside, but white on the inside.
I think in some ways, yes, I've become more white on the inside. Partly through university experience, and I because of my background in India, where I'd already become westernized or whatever, I don't know what term to use, colonialized or whatever. I had a lot of English stuff, through my education in my school in India and stuff like that, already in me. And when I came here, my orientation was European. Dan likes to say that my family is just too Eurocentric.
But even now, though, if I ever have a problem or something, or he's right. I gotta go talk to Dad.
I know.
I just assume that Dad's always right. So whatever he tells me must be right then, right? So I just go to Dad.
I know.
I always knew that Dad could be wrong.
The racial histories of Canadian communities are all different, but the World War II internment of Japanese Canadians adds unique drama to the Hutta family history.
This thing about the internment has made our experience really quite unique. In contrast to other mixed people, because when our fathers were growing up in St. Catharines, the Port Dalhousie area, there were no other Japanese families around. So I think that some other cultural groups may have, stayed with their cultural group. But for us, it really is, like race and culture, they are separate things.
They're very separate.
Very Canadian culture.
Yeah, for our fathers, they were forced almost to assimilate into the Canadian culture. My father, everything he did was to be a part of the Canadian culture. And I don't ever remember hearing stories about he and his family doing sort of having Japanese customs. They tried very much to adopt the Canadian culture.
Our father fit in this through things like sports.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, my dad too. He was really big into football, playing hockey.
The Canadian
that was exactly.
Have you seen that picture before, huh?
Oh no, I haven't. This is new.
Yeah.
Strategies to deal with racism can define families because the parents are incapable of seeing their children as different and cannot understand why anyone would think otherwise.
In a store one time, and I had you and Mike with me, and to me, you don't look any different than me. And the lady asked me whose kids they were, and we're getting really, they're my kids. I don't look like you. They certainly do. You were very young, you wouldn't remember that, but I remember being really angry and upset that she would think they were somebody else's kids. To me, you look just like me. Because I don't think of you guys as Japanese. That doesn't really, only when we're talking about it that I think, oh yeah, right. But to me, you're just Sarah and Ron. That's it.
When my friends say that, or many of my acquaintances say that, it's actually hard for me to believe them. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it just, I can't believe that they could say, I don't think of you as being Japanese. I mean, you're looking at me, What is it that you're looking at if you don't think of me as being a little bit different?
Well, every time I meet someone, the first question they ask is, what's your background?
I didn't realize that you were asked that question all the time.
No, it's something that happens every time I meet someone new, just about. Somewhere in the conversation will come up of where you're from and then what's your background, and the lead into that question.
I guess because I'm not of a racial minority, or not really, I'd never even thought of that. You never mentioned it before.
I think my father was always taught to ignore the person who's making a racist comment and to ignore the behavior. And so my mother picked up on that. In a way, I wish that they had both dealt with it in a more direct way and had taught my brother and I how to speak back in a way that the person would realize what they had said was extremely offensive to us. And perhaps they would learn from it. Even if they didn't, at least we would feel better about it. But to bottle that up and not to be able to react to someone when they've made comments like that, it's upsetting. And when it happens, time and time again, it really builds up and it becomes an issue. And I think it's not until now, some, 10, 15 years later, that I've been able to deal with that pain.
I'm very critical when I see people of different races or different backgrounds coming together. I'm very, very critical of it. I just want to know why. It's a nice thing to say we're in love, or love is going to conquer all, or, who cares what people think, they're closed-minded. The reality is we're living in a racist world, and you're going to have to deal with racism. And you may want to shut your ears to it and lock yourself away in a bubble, but your kids won't be able to do that. They're going to have to go out in the world and go to school and deal with these issues. And if you don't want to deal with it, they're going to have to deal with it on their own, which is very, very difficult.
This is the heaviest burden carried by mixed-race children to steer their way pretty much on their own. Their parents, having taken a step to transcend racism by marrying each other, often assume that their acts and similar acts will eventually kill the racism around them.
One thing that really disturbs me too about children coming out of this relationship is that sometimes the parents have this idea that the children are going to save the world, they're going to conquer racism because you have these two races coming together in this child. This child is a sort of blessed event and is going to unify. Like that's a terrible pressure to put a child under. And it's very erroneous. I mean, you can't expect racism to end because people are mating together. I mean, this has been going on for centuries. It's been going on for centuries. It hasn't changed a damn thing. If you look at the Caribbean, it's been going on for 500 years. You know, a huge percentage of people in the Caribbean are mixed people. It hasn't changed anything. It hasn't changed our relations.
That's been the story of my life. My whole life in Canada has been, where are you from? What are you? Mm-hmm. Is that your mother? Or my mother being asked, are they adopted? You know, and then if you say, oh, I'm from Winnipeg, or I was born, oh no, where are you really from?
Yeah.
Right? No, where were you from before? Well, what's your nationality? I mean, it's just a constant rephrasing of this question, trying to place you somewhere other than here. You know? Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, that's why I'll just never really feel Canadian. And I don't really, you know, I don't feel any great loss about that either. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, I feel so strongly about my Canadian identity. I don't. I just feel that, you know, this has never been home, and I think a big reason that has never been home is because I was never treated from very young as if this was a place for me.
Kimiko Hota, after all her similar searching on a few continents, has come to a different decision about her place and her identity.
So I've traveled all over the world, I guess. It's interesting that in Japan, people didn't identify me as Japanese. They identified me as Canadian. In a country as well like Scotland, which is very homogenous and very white, I felt very conspicuous there. In India, I stuck out. I stuck out when I lived in Switzerland. I stuck out there. I had to travel all over the world to realize that the place where I probably feel the most comfortable, where I feel that I blend in the most and can just relax and be myself, is probably Canada and really this city, Toronto. To realize that I am multicultural, this is a good multicultural environment, and I'm pretty happy here.
The lives of mixed-race children are far more complex than most parents realize. Shazia and Henderson may not even be aware that the opposition to their relationship is going to impact on the self-esteem and identity choices of their children. Mixed-race children experience racism not only within society at large, but also within their own families and communities. Shazia and Henderson may never be able to fully understand their children's experiences, but they need to become aware that their children will have different experiences from their own and will feel the pressure of a society that is obsessed with placing people in distinct racial categories.
Dad doesn't really, sometimes he doesn't understand the way things are now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some things Dad didn't understand, like when I was a kid. I wanted to play like ice hockey, right? Because all my friends were playing ice hockey, and of course I liked hockey, I liked playing road hockey, so I wanted to play ice hockey. But he didn't put me in ice hockey because he wanted me to do figure skating first. And I tried to explain to him nobody does figure skating before they go to ice hockey, but he wouldn't believe me.
I know. So
that's why I never got to play hockey, and it still ticks me off.
With me, like being a girl, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem very Indian, so to speak, but he does have that background, like in terms of when I was when I was growing up and stuff, wanting me to stay at home and be a good girl, and why would I even want?
That whole foolishness. It's tied in with marriage, and it's intended to be very much a part of marriage, so that you're thinking in those terms, and I've always put that to them.
Marrying into another mixed race, a different racial family has probably been not so much about marrying.
Freedom in going out and stuff like that. I was just as concerned in all cases that they approach that whole business of relations with the opposite sex from a Christian point of view and a biblical point of view, that is with considering the seriousness of their sexuality. It's not given for,
I want to go out with my friends. You can never understand it. It just infuriate me. You can just never understand. No matter how many times I argued with him, cried, pleaded, begged, why I would want to go out with my friends.
Yeah.
Now I'm old enough. He can't stop me or anything.
Maybe I treated Miriam as a girl differently from the boys, and giving the boys more